Cool Hand Podcast, something you got to deal with. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host. My name is Q. We have another guest in the building, another interview in the building. Now, how am I going to introduce the person that we have on the show today? This is my friend, and what he specializes in is something that not many people can do. You have to have a vision, and you have to have the right. I don't know what you have to have the right thing of because I don't know too much about this. I know the word aperture, I know that much, but I don't want to talk too much. Let me have the guests introduce themselves, please.
Hi, my name is Nick DeFrancis, and I take pictures as a hobby.
Nick, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being on. I've had videographer slash photographer, my boy Jamin, on before. But I believe that's the only photographer that has been on, and he does work in a different capacity than what you do. So it's nice to have someone on from another side of the photography game. So what are you sipping on, by the way? What do you sip? We like drinks on the podcast.
I got a glass of Writer's Tears. This was a moving out present from my dad.
Writer's tears. What does
It's
that taste like?
it is Irish whiskey. It's
Oh,
not very smoky. It's a good one for if you don't like whiskey and you're getting into it.
okay. Irish tears. I like the name. Um, Well, I hope you enjoy that. I'll be sipping on water, even though I can probably use a drink, something to appreciate at the end of this day. Um, but let's talk about you, Nick. What's your Instagram name, by the way? Because I'm going to refer to you by that name today.
Okay. So my photography Instagram is Wild Bokeh.
Wild Bokeh, which I love that name. And where did you get that name from? How did you come up with that name?
So bokeh is a term for the blurred light that you get if you're shooting pictures at a low aperture. So and so bokeh, and then wild is because I mostly take nature photography, and I do landscapes, and I do a lot of astrophotography as well.
All right, we're gonna get all up it. We're gonna get into that. So remember that thought. Hold that thought for everyone listening. You hold that thought too, because I can do a little bit of this as well and forget where other things that I wanted to say. So let's start from the beginning very briefly. Nick, where are you from?
I am from, well, I was born in Philly, but I'm from Pittsburgh, and I've been in
From
Pittsburgh
Philly?
my whole life.
You were born in Philly.
Yep.
So when did you come to Pittsburgh? I know you were born in Philly but raised. Do you remember?
I was a baby.
Okay, so
Yeah, I've lived in this house, in the house that, well, I can't say this house because I moved out a week ago, but I've lived in my parents' house for almost my entire life. And I have three memories of the house before that, but I've lived in forever.
interesting. For the people who don't know, yes, Nick is in a new place, and yeah, he got kicked out about a week ago. I'm just playing. No, 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 no. He didn't get kicked out, but we'll talk about why you moved out later as well, and maybe that has an effect on your photography as well. But let's start from the beginning. You were born in Philly, raised in Pittsburgh most of your life. What was life like growing up for yourself?
um, I feel like a lot of growing up was centered around being a twin. I'm a fraternal twin. I have a brother, John, who's 2 minutes younger than me, complete opposite. He's a foot shorter than me and half my size, and we are the complete opposite. I am a obnoxious, outgoing, loud, uh, I like to say older brother, but he would hit me if I said that. And he'll sit there with his headphones in all day and not not talk to anybody. So most of it was growing up with him, and like my parents are very hands on, and I consider my mom to be one of my best friends, and she's actually probably the biggest reason that I've gotten into photography.
Mm.
Um, she's always been taking pictures, and we kind of actually started taking the hobby a little bit more seriously together.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. And I know Nick's brother or Wild Bokeh's brother, and he couldn't be more right. They are complete opposites. His hair is darker than yours, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, even the hair. But yeah, like but both of you aren't hard to tell apart. Seeing your seeing the baby pictures, seeing some of those baby pictures were so cute. We saw some baby pictures of Wild Bokeh and his brother maybe a couple weeks ago at a online event, and you guys were so cute. You guys were adorable, might I say.
The funny thing is, like, as soon as we tell people we're brothers, it's fine. Like, I'm Nick, he's John,
Mm.
totally fine. The second we say we're twins, we look totally different, and they're like, wait, which one's which?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you look well, I would say you look like your mom more. You
Yes.
look like your mom. And then your brother,
I always say I look like mom and John looks adopted.
I didn't know how to explain. I was gonna say your brother is maybe like a fuse of your mom and dad, but
Yeah.
you are like a good spitting image of your mom. Maybe sometimes you look like your dad, but
I've been told lately that I sound like dad, which
yes.
is very weird to hear because I never thought dad and I had anything like in common. I mean, we get along, but I never thought we sounded alike or looked alike or anything.
Yes, you do sound alike. I do agree with that. But that's a good thing. Your dad is a good guy. So, all right, growing up in Pittsburgh, you're twins. You polar opposites. Whether that happened naturally or like maybe when you were babies, you were kind of alike, and then like you're like, I want to be my own person. Like I'm gonna, branch away from this other guy. So, um, what did you and your brother, or you and your mom, you and your dad, what did you guys do creatively growing up?
Oh man. Well, my mom was always an artist. So we got a lot of our creativity from her. Um, she was a big painter. She used to do it. She actually took classes and did a little bit of schooling for it, but she started out in drafting and everything, and she has like huge portraits that she used to do of her parents and of dad when they started dating, because they started dating way back in high school. So I got a lot of it from that. So I started sketching, and I was never very good at painting, but it was a lot of drawing and that kind of stuff with mom. Um, John and I were both in band in school. So we started out in trumpet. I learned shortly that I couldn't read music. So I switched to drums, and I've been drumming ever since. He later moved to guitar and then faded out of it. But music has always been a very big thing for our family. My parents never played, but uh, for being a drummer, it's not something that you usually think your parents would support. But my dad will sit in the basement and listen to me drum all night, even if I think it sounds terrible.
Really? No, I did not know that. Interesting. So you were in a band, weren't you? Did you have a group that was maybe kind of formed? Yeah.
Yeah, we had a brother from the hall, Greg McCusker. He would come play bass, and he can shred on his bass. So we would play a lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers and stuff like that, with a lot of funk and heavy beats to it. So he'd bring over his 50-pound amp that's half my size,
Jeez.
and we'd just wail on it for a good couple hours.
Yeah. Shout out to Greg as well. That's
Shout out to Greg, G Money.
Cool. That G Money. That's my man too. That's my man. So all right, so trumpet couldn't really read the music, weren't
Not at all.
that.
Not at all.
You got onto the drums. What really attracted you to the drums?
I could always keep a beat, and I don't know. I feel like after listening to music as much as I had, I was able to sit there and kind of pick things out. Like I could pick out each individual drum. I could pick out all the different sounds, and I just caught myself drumming in the car on my lap and everything. to the point where whenever I would be driving, Dad would tell me to keep my hands on the wheel.
Oh wow. So a drum player, and also in the past, this was in the past, of course, you were a driving hazard. So
Yeah, a little bit.
now things transitioned into photography at what age? Or at what point did you find an interest in it?
Um, I've had an interest in it for as long as I can remember. My mom always had a camera, and they were very good parents, so they would take us on trips whenever we could. Um, and most of the time, it was to the beach. So she would walk up and down the coast, just taking pictures. Um, so I eventually learned to do the same thing, even though I don't like the beach.
You don't like the beach?
No, I'd rather do adventure stuff than sit on the beach
That
for a week.
makes plenty of sense. Yes.
So the the first time that we went to Hawaii for a family vacation, that was probably my biggest excitement with taking pictures. So I got a little, probably $30 point and shoot camera. Didn't know anything about photography. I was probably 9, and just filled an SD card
Mm-hmm.
just with a bunch of stuff. It was all pictures of the volcano and palm trees and everything. And it was funny, that same trip, my mom actually, we thought she got kidnapped. Um, this does relate to photography, trust me.
Oh yeah, tell the
So
story, please.
so we thought that she actually got kidnapped because the rest of us were all sitting on the beach. John and I were playing in the water. Dad was sitting on the beach towel, and it was a good 3 or 4 hours. So mom said, "I'm going to go take some pictures. I'm going to walk down the road and just take some pictures of everybody's gardens that they had, because all the beachfront properties had huge, beautiful gardens with tons of flowers and everything." So she said, "I want to go take some flowers or pictures of flowers." It was a good 2, 3 hours later,
Mm-mm.
and didn't hear from her. We're obviously like far away from anything that we know. We're on the big island of Hawaii, and she's not picking up the phone, and she's not answering texts.
Oh no.
We eventually found her. She lost track of time, and she walked into like a restaurant and called my dad from the landline that they had there. When we finally got her, she had taken almost 3,000 pictures.
My goodness.
So that's kind of where it all started. I eventually, whenever I got my first real job and I could afford anything, one of my first purchases that I ever made was my Nikon that I have. And it was like a real legitimate camera. It's a DSLR, and that's the only camera that I use other than my new film camera. So I started out taking pictures of the night sky because space has always been one of my favorite things. So got a tripod, got a remote start, and started taking pictures of the stars.
Okay. Now, very good stuff. Thank you for sharing. So, what camera were you using between 9 and when did you get your nice on?
I got my Nikon probably when I was,
Nikon, excuse me.
you're good. I got it probably when I was 17, 18, honestly.
Okay. So were you using that same point and shoot camera up until then?
Nope, phones do great things and they have pretty good cameras.
That's right.
So I dealt with that for how many years until I could afford a nice DSLR.
Gotcha. And when it came to getting into photography, it's not a simple thing. Did you read any books or anything like that? Because I know there is a whole world of photography and different angles and this and that. Even when I'm setting up my camera to record a video over here, there is a lot that goes into it that I never realized. So can you talk about that?
So I never really read many books, but one of the only TV channels that we ever had on was the Discovery Channel. So it was just traveling, it was nature, um, it was all the stuff that I wanted to go see. So photography is the best way to make sure you get to keep all of that stuff and you get to hold on to it. So watching survival shows, honestly, what is it, Survivor Man? He goes out in the woods for a week and just carries his own camera and he records himself, and that's how they make the show. And I know a lot of the transitions that he does, it's time lapses of the night sky and everything in like beautiful Alps or like in some desert. And I wanted to take pictures like that.
So would you say that you mainly learned through mainly experience, just playing with the camera, fiddling with it, taking this shot?
Yes. So the funny thing, I feel like I'm kind of opposite of a lot of photographers that I've seen. A lot of I watch a lot of YouTube and everything, so I know a lot of the technical things for photography. I know how to set my exposure. I know how to make sure the lighting is okay and everything like that. But I don't feel like I'm very creative with it. I don't feel like I'm the best at getting the right angles and the best perspectives for shots. And that's what I really took a lot of from watching TV and watching different documentaries and things. And my mom is very creative. I have to help her a little bit with the technical side, but she will beat me every single time at getting the most creative shot. And that also comes into play with editing and everything later.
All right. Now, before we talk about editing, because I do want to talk about that as well, because I've seen some of your pictures, and pictures are hard. Now we ain't gonna
Thank
act
you.
like he's being a little modest, because in my opinion, I don't have like a photographer's eye or anything, but I can
I don't
appreciate a
either.
good picture. You
Well,
think
thank you.
Yeah, you think you don't, but I think you do. So, and on the Cool Hand podcast, what I say goes. So you have a good photography eye.
Thank
So
you.
now, um, you know what? I forgot my question because I wanted to compliment you so
Ah,
well. So let's talk about um the editing aspect of photography, because I can think of a couple pictures of yours where there's a nice contrast of light, I would say, and it has to do with people holding lightsabers.
oh yeah. Um, those ones were fun. I remember it's the same that goes along very well with night photography. I'm not personally, I don't think I'm very good at taking pictures of people, but whenever it's mostly a silhouette, it doesn't really count as people. So just setting up tripods and everything, trying to get an angle that I feel is good. And then I take mostly long exposures. So long exposures is what's going to help you actually see the stars because it's just how long the aperture's open. And the longer it's open, the more light gets to be brought into the camera. And then that's how you get those crazy galaxy pictures and the Milky Way pictures and everything.
Mm,
It's just the longer you leave the aperture open. So I tend to take 20-second long pictures instead of 100 really quick ones.
gotcha.
But with those lightsaber pictures, it's basically you just got to stand still for as long as you can. And sometimes you swing it once and it creates really cool sweeping light effects and light trails. And you still get to have the trees and the stars real clear behind you.
All right. And speaking of, we're talking about the editing and aperture and light and long exposure and all this stuff. We do have some visuals that Nick so kindly provided with us or for us. Can you just talk about what you're going to show us?
Yeah, so I have a couple good examples of lightsaber pictures that we were talking about, and I can pull up a few of my better astrophotography pictures. that I just have on hand. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So can you see that okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So whenever I took this picture, I set it up on a tripod, and when we turned those lights off, everything was completely dark. So that really kind of shows you how much more the camera can pick up than your eyes can pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can do the same with this one. So stop that for a second. And then this is one of my favorite ones. So our family went out to Utah, which has become my favorite place on earth. And it is because of stuff like this.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, Utah. Okay.
So it is this. I took this at Cedar Breaks National Monument. It was about 10,000 feet elevation. It was enough. It was high enough, and my asthma was bad enough that it was hard for me to sleep because I would lose my breath. But this picture, this is fairly close to what you could actually see with your eyes. I still feel that photography, at least at my level, doesn't actually do nature justice. But one of my favorite parts of it is that especially with the editing process, I try my best to get it as close as I can. And I don't know if you can see my cursor, but
Yeah.
I actually got a pretty nice shooting star.
Yeah.
But yeah, this picture was probably over 30 seconds. And I didn't do any kind of photo stacking or anything. So this is just one picture. But
It's a beautiful picture. Like, I love it. Like you say, like, we talk about music a lot on here. And, one of my favorite things to say is, music can take you somewhere else. And that's exactly what photography does as well. You took us to Utah and the beautiful scenery there.
it's funny because I feel like with how you said music can take us places, I feel like one of, I guess, my things is I've always been a very emotional person. Out of my family, I feel like I'm one of the most. So I don't take a lot of pictures, but whenever I do take pictures, I try and take ones that have a good bit of meaning to me, or I feel like it evokes a strong feeling. Even if it doesn't do that for anybody else, I want to have a strong feeling whenever I look at the picture or even whenever I'm editing it. So a lot of my pictures, I don't feel like I take a lot. And of course, I probably miss some of the better opportunities because I don't take a lot. But I try and find stuff that speaks to me a lot. And most of the time it's nature stuff.
Got you. So from listening to you say that, would it be safe to say that it's more than a hobby? Photography is for you. It's more of a personal thing.
Yeah. I like to share what pictures I've taken. But for the most part, I like the process, and that actually kind of leads me to film photography a little bit. But I like the process, and I like what it does for me. I am the kind of person who, if I am going to do something, I give it 110%. So with photography, that has been one of my longest lasting hobbies. But it's definitely something for me, more than for anybody else.
Now let's talk about the film photography. That's your second camera. Now you have the Nikon, and then you have. Do we have props? We do have.
Yeah.
Props
So
in the building.
Nikon, it's a DSLR. This was it is my only DSLR, but it is. That's what I've done all of my shooting on up until last month, 2 months ago. And so for astrophotography, this is my real big beefy lens, wide angle, and 14 millimeter broken on. And that's how I get as much light in, because the aperture goes all the way down to 1.8. So, and that's fairly low. And then this.
Uh-oh.
This is my Canon AE1 program. This was an early anniversary gift from my fiance, Dominique. And I haven't been able to put it down since it was given to me.
Shout out to the fiance. We're going to talk about you, fiance, in a little bit. I'm looking straight at the camera and pointing. We're going to talk about you in a little bit. Not a lot, though. We don't like to get too personal on the Cool Hand podcast because, we don't want to get too personal. That's a little weird. So anyway, what brought you into the film camera? Say the name of this camera again for anybody like me who just forgot or wants to look it up.
So I tend to be a Nikon person. Usually there is a turf war between Nikon and Canon. So when Dominique got this for me, I almost laughed a little bit, but this is a Canon AE1 program. So I think it was from like the 70s-ish, whenever they started making these. The program part of it is what makes it a little bit fancier than older cameras, because I can actually still technically shoot this on automatic. All that I have to do is make sure that it's clear, but I technically can shoot this on automatic, and I don't have to mess with the aperture or the shutter speed.
Okay. Now, is that the same? Now, I have a friend. Well, we have a mutual friend. Do you two have the same exact camera?
You're talking about Samson?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We don't have the same exact camera, but they're basically the same camera from two different companies. So he shoots on a Pentax K1000, sorry. Pentax K1000. And we actually were able to swap film recently. We had each bought different brands of film, and we were able to swap some and shoot on each other's film. So that was nice. But his looks very similar. His might be all black though, but it functions almost exactly the same.
Now, what is it about the Canon AE1 program that you love so much?
So with film in general, the really cool thing about film is, I think, what makes it opposite from what modern photography is. So modern photography is all about getting this perfect, crystal clear, flawless image, and you photo stack, and then you edit everything together, and you make it look seamless and perfect. And film photography is the complete opposite of that. So film photography, you get light streaks, you get blur and noise and everything. And I think the beauty in film is all of the imperfections. So that's why I've not necessarily swapped, but I have started leaning heavily towards film, is because it's a lot more raw and in the moment, and you actually have to be a little bit more thoughtful with the pictures that you're taking, because instead of taking 1,000 pictures with a DSLR, you only have 36 photos or 24 on a roll before you have to swap it out. And you have to wind it every time you take a picture. So it's a lot more diligent and a lot more thought out between pictures.
Old school.
Yes, old school, and I love it.
We like it. Yeah, I know you on your Instagram you said which pictures were taken with the newest camera, and they look nice. I like the I'm gonna call it mild vintage, because
yes,
it has like the vintage look, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with the photo quality. So it just looks as modern, but just with a hint of vintage. And those pictures look really good.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like film, it depends on what film you actually buy, like the actual rolls of film. But I shoot mostly Kodak, but I have Kodak Gold 200, and then I have Kodak 400, and they tend to be warmer, which I feel like is what gives it the vintage vibe to it. The colors are a lot more red and orange, as opposed to like the colder blues.
Now I have one more question about the film camera is when it comes to the development of them, what is the process of developing a picture taken on a camera like that?
So, very often, and what I do is I actually take it to a local photo shop. So there is one which the name is escaping me right now, but it is in Monroeville Mall. So I'm actually able to take it there. They'll develop it for me. They do it in a dark room and everything, and they will actually give me back my negatives, and they will give me all of my photos in the highest quality that film will allow on a flash drive. So I don't have to have the 4x6 and scan them into my computer manually. They actually give me them digitally.
All right. So moving on, let's let me bring the mic closer because it's about to get real. Now, you got kicked out of the house. We talked about that earlier in the episode. Um, but you kind of kicked yourself out of circumstance, and that circumstance is that you mentioned earlier is that you have a fiance. So Wild Bokeh is gonna be
Getting
married.
married.
He's getting man. The boys getting hitched. They grow up so fast. I met you like 2-3 years ago, but they grow up so fast. Um, and your fiance is the one that bought you this anniversary present, the Canon film AE1, I believe, right?
Yep.
So has your relationship, has that had any sort of effect on your photography?
Yeah, definitely. So it's funny, like whenever I told her that I wanted this camera, we weren't even dating yet. So she has had that in her memory bank for we we liked each other for a while, but it was even before that. So it was she's had this in her memory bank for a good 2.5, 3 years at most. So like, and I cried when she gave it to me. Like this has been something that I've wanted for so long, and she got me a couple lenses with it and everything. And that is one of our shared hobbies, is going and taking pictures. So it's actually how I was supposed to ask her out to be my girlfriend. Was we were supposed to go to an observatory and we were going to take night sky pictures, and I was going to ask her there, and then it decided to rain. So,
Of course.
but we have a joint hobby in taking pictures, and she is also a Canon person, not a Nikon person.
Not, we were talking with someone before, and they said like you're not a real photographer unless you have a Canon, something like that. Not verbatim. That's not what this person said verbatim, but they were Canon fans, Canon stands maybe, and that's what they said. But so you guys have a little internal beef going,
A little bit.
unlike,
She doesn't
unlike
care
most.
that much, but I always think it's funny because anytime she asks me to help her mess with any settings, I'm like, I don't even know what your camera is. Like everything's different. But but no, we've actually we've been pretty lucky in that we've gotten to go to Cherry Springs, which if for anybody listening, it is a dark sky park that's actually the closest one to where Quentin and I live. So it is about 4 hours away, but it is one of the darkest places with the darkest sky and the lowest light pollution in Pennsylvania. So you can actually go, and Dominique and I went to see a meteor shower, which was pretty awesome. There was about 50 or so, 50 to 100 meteors an hour that you could see. So that's more shooting stars than most people get to see in a lifetime.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. How did you even find that place?
So actually, whenever we went to Hawaii the first time for my family vacation, that was one of my big disappointments, was because they have, as an island, a very low light pollution. They make sure that they turn their lights off at a reasonable hour, and they have a special kind of light bulb that produces less pollution than most light bulbs that we have over here and in the rest of the world. So they have a lot prettier views at night. They have a lot more stars that they're able to see, And on top of that, one of the volcanoes has an observatory at a very high elevation. And because it's at such a high elevation, the air is thinner because it's colder, which means they can see even more. So I can't remember what the name of that telescope is, but I was not allowed to go
Oh,
because I was a small asthmatic child
oh,
who they didn't think I was going to be able to breathe at that high of an elevation, which they would probably be right. But
you were willing to risk it all
I
though
was willing to
at that
risk
young
it.
age.
I was willing to risk it. So I wasn't able to do that, but we went to Utah a few years later, and almost that entire state is a dark sky park.
Okay.
So able to see the stars, able to see the Milky Way with your naked eye, and just the amount of colors and everything is crazy. So to be able to go and do that locally or 4 hours away, so fairly locally, is pretty awesome. So we've gotten to go out to Cherry Springs twice and get to just basically spend the night looking up at the stars and then drive home early in the morning.
Mhm. Yeah, I noticed something that I noticed, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that your Wild Bokeh Instagram page started blooming out of the blue. Now you guys were already dating, but I just feel like just out of nowhere, Wild Bokeh picture, Wild Bokeh picture, Wild Bokeh picture, Wild Bokeh picture. And it might have been after you got engaged. So I thought, I'm like, wow, see, something happened where where those pictures are just flowing. What effect did does does your dating slash engagement have on your photography?
Well, with let me think about it. So Dominique is a very determined person. She is probably one of the strongest people that I know. So with being a nurse and everything, she works incredibly hard, even if she doesn't necessarily want to. If she puts her mind to it, she's going to do it. And I feel like with my photography, that has rubbed off on me. So I had thousands and thousands of pictures that I have taken before and thought they were garbage and never did anything with them. So with COVID and everything, not really much to do. Can't go out on adventures like we want to.
Yeah.
I've been looking through my old pictures, and I've been doing a lot more editing, and I've having a lot more fun with the editing process than I used to, because I've learned a lot more about Lightroom and a little bit about Photoshop and everything. So I've been having a lot more fun digging through my old pictures and saying, I think there's something there, as opposed to just never looking at it again.
Hmm. So obviously, this relationship has done you well. And what's next? What's next for Wild Bokeh?
For I don't know. I can't wait until we can go places again.
Hmm.
Um, and even if that's until after I get married, then that just means I get to go with Dominique. So we're gonna go travel, and we joke a lot that the 5 year plan, 10 year plan, however long it's gonna be, is that we will go build a house somewhere out west in the middle of the woods and be in nature a lot more than we get to be now. But um, up until now, it started snowing. We've been going on walks pretty regularly, and I'll always take my camera. So hopefully, a lot more traveling and a lot more getting to take pictures with Dominique. Maybe I'll learn how to do some portrait photography. I'll have somebody sitting there.
That was my next question. Do you think you might get into portraits more now that you'll have a subject around?
I really want to learn. So that has to do a lot with just being comfortable with somebody, which obviously being married or engaged, at least right now, we're very comfortable. But but yeah, that's something that I'd like to learn, and it'll really test my creativity, I think. And it'll also test my speed and how I take the pictures. because I'm so used to shooting on manual where I can sit there and mess with the settings for 5 minutes before I take one picture. And portrait photographers and engagement photographers and people who take photos of people, they take 1,000 pictures in the time that I take one. So it'll be a new skill set to learn, and I'll have people to do it with. So.
Let me ask you one more thing. For those who may be watching this, maybe a random person who doesn't know either of us, and they were thinking about getting into photography, what advice would you give to anyone who was just entering the photography field?
I would definitely say not to put any pressure on yourself. It is with every hobby, it is supposed to be fun, and it is supposed to bring you joy and satisfaction in your own work. So even if nobody else likes it or likes how you take your pictures, if it speaks to you, that should be good enough. So I have plenty of pictures that I know that I like, and I've had people say, that one's not your best, or they'll say, well, what about this other one? So if it's something that you enjoy doing, don't let anybody stop you from doing it. I would say, even if you're just using your phone, just try and get people to do it with you. If you have friends who have an interest in it, ask them questions and go on photo walks together, because you're going to get the best advice from bouncing ideas off of each other and from having somebody to do it with, and you'll have a lot more fun with it. So just don't overthink anything, because that's whenever it turns into a job and less of a creative outlet.
Wise words from Wild Bokeh. Now, before we wrap it up, did I miss anything? Did you have anything else to say? Any shout outs? Anything like that?
Let me think. It's funny because you did say one of the first things that you said was not having a photographer like me on the show before.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the people that you have had on the show are a lot more multi-talented than you may think, because Samson is a very good portrait photographer. He has shown me up more than once. And even Micah, because he's on here to talk about fashion, but he a little while ago used to take pictures quite often, and I've been trying to get him back into it. So if you can help me push him back into the hobby, get him used to it again.
Maybe this public podcast will get him back. Get back into photography, Micah.
Yeah, then we'll come back and do a joint interview again or something.
Yeah, get back into photography. Go. You could take pictures of your Go Yard, your Go Yard bags, and your Mason Martin Margiela camel shoes.
Are those the new ones he just got?
What else? Yeah. He's over here. You could take pictures of fashion. Take pictures or something, Micah. Jeez. See what you got.
Micah's a very good subject. He's one of the few people that I've done portraits of, and we went just walking down Walnut Street in Shadyside, and he is a very good subject. So it'd just be nice to see him on the other end of the camera too.
He's a photogenic guy. The guy takes good pictures. I don't know.
It's the confidence.
Get back into photography. And you heard it from Wild Bokeh and Cool Hand Podcast, because you know what, on my just a little quick anecdote on the Cool Hand Podcast Instagram page. Now it still shows me suggestions for people to follow, and his photography page pops up, and I'm like, dude hasn't posted anything on this forever. So I think it's time. I think this is a sign, our friend.
Yeah, shout out to the M Collection.
That's what it's called, the M Collection. Yes.
Yeah.
So whoever is listening to this, not just our friend Micah, pick that hobby back up, whatever it is. as long as it isn't detrimental. Um, but this is the Cool Hand Podcast. We had Wild Bokeh. Thank you for being on today.
Thank you.
We
Thank you again
appreciate
for
it,
having me. Yeah.
and we look forward to more pictures. We can find you on Instagram at Wild Bokeh. We'll put that up on the screen for anyone who wants to follow. This is the Cool Hand Podcast.